I find so striking from this position is what we see immediately in front of us, which is suburbia. You see the worst things, in a way, of suburbia, and I find it extraordinary that it's a Saturday morning and yet there's nobody about. There are no children, there are nobody on the street. It's in a sense a feeling of a wholly privatized world. In behind these net curtains and behind these little front doors is the private world of consumption. In a sense, within there are the items of furniture, of clothing, which are in their commodity forms dealt and represented with their power over there. And further over here I find too the openness of these houses, i.e. they look out, and one of the things that was I suppose quite common in a lot of industrial building in the 19th century was that they had outsides, they looked out. But here we have, in a sense, something which could be anything. It happens to be a newspaper, a place that produces the Evening Standard and the Daily Mail, but it in a sense is a windowless object. It could be making nuclear power, it could be making cement. Here I think we have in front of us this, as it were, a residue, an attempt to recreate something from the past of this area, which after all was in millennia gone by an ancient forest, and even in the 18th century was a very well developed agricultural area. And the building of the docks, which are the remnants of which are almost no longer seeable, visible. You have disputes about the growing of agricultural produce that was so essential for the city just across the river. The docks became part of that movement of the expansion of trade in the 19th century in Britain, which meant that all of us, and in a sense to a large extent rich and poor alike, depended as the century wore on for our food that we ate, for the materials which we built our buildings with, for things of everyday life from further and further around the world. And the area we're looking at now, of course, was the great centre. In fact, it was the largest timber docking facility in the world. And we brought timber from the Baltic, we brought timber from Africa, we brought timber from India, and later from Australia and New Zealand, and of course the masses and masses of softwood which built nearly all our houses from Canada, United States, and from Scandinavia. And I think now we see the contrast between what we were seeing earlier with local authority housing, and here we see Cascades, the famous an incredibly expensive private development on the Isle of Dogs, which in form is not really significantly different from the 4 local authority blocks that we can see over there. But I suspect that the way that a person living in Cascades views themselves and the world is fundamentally different from the person who lives on the top floor in the tower block, which isn't far away.
Certainly the way that the world views them is different.
Oh, and certainly the way that the world views them is fundamentally different. I suppose the other thing which further back down here we had, which I think is really, I suppose, important but is almost now totally eradicated, is from where you see the power station chimney up to that slab block. The Pepys estate was the centre of shipbuilding and ship production and naval power, which enabled what we saw right at the beginning, the City of London to expand and consolidate its financial and industrial power worldwide over a period of 300 years. I cannot comprehend how capital is working to create yet a new centre, because my suspicion is that it'll be like the out-of-town shopping centre which kills off the high street. And what we saw over here, which is the City of London, will it survive? Will its structure, will the demand and need for office space continue. Once this so-called magnet, which is going to be near to an airport, which is going to have the latest technology in mass communications, going to kill off, in a sense, the golden egg, which is those institutions and informal networks which exist over there. What's interesting about it is that you can only sit in, it's so ungenerous.
Well, when I first came here, all these were working docks. This panorama that you can see around your woodland was a working dock of ships coming down from the Baltic, bringing produce from the Baltic states, Russia, Norway, the outside coast of Norway, and something like 20 or 30 ships a week moving in and out of the port. The other dock, Canada Dock, was more involved with Canadian produce, butter, cheese, and all those associated products. And it was a very busy working dock up till about 1955-56. Well, from this dial here, you can see what came over the history of the Surrey commercial docks into this port. You have such things as dairy produce from the States, jute from India, general cargoes from Germany, and paper from Canada, paper from Finland. Many of the basic staples that came into London came into the Surrey commercial dock. The dock was mostly entered from through the Greenland Passage and exited through the North Passage at just under Tower Bridge. About the late 40s, due to lack of dredging during the war, the entrance from the Lavender Dock silted up and fell into disuse. That began to spell the end of the docks. Plus, the infrastructure didn't keep pace with the growth, in that South London expanded, closed in the roads, and so on. The roads to the docks weren't rebuilt or weren't widened to take the modern lorries and so on. So the port more or less starved because of the hinterland in a way. A lot of people blame the dockers for going on strike and for asking for more money, but that wasn't the main factor at all. It was a small factor, but it wasn't the main factor. The main factor was that the port itself needed a lot of investment, which it didn't get after the war. It was easier to invest in places like Rotterdam, Antwerp, and the German ports.
It's amazing the way in which the ability of capital, the force of the heart of the metropolitan force to bulldoze anything else out of the way. You know, I mean, history's just been eradicated by here. John you were really struck by that.
the way, I mean, history and the biosphere have been eradicated, and history in a sense has been forgotten and replaced by kind of very glossy little panels that tell you about the wonders and the glamour of the docks. I mean, even all the docklands bump that you get tells of a colourful and glamorous history, which it certainly wasn't a colourful and glamorous history. And the biosphere as well is just covered by a skin of very uniform paving stones. There are no gardens in any of the flats. There are central courtyards with expanses of transplanted turf. There are the odd willow tree. There's Russia Dock, which has been wooded over, but that's about it. So not only his history, but the natural history has been quite eradicated quite strongly.
What did you used to do?
Working on ships, on the shore, drive a stack of trucks. All labouring. 4 men do 400 tonne a day of cheese. 400 tonne, yeah.
The cheese?
The cheese, yeah.
I've seen
First
photographs.
crates, then cartons, like. About 3 to 4 barges a day. And they weren't satisfied,
Yeah.
the employers. And really speaking, they closed it down because it was a money spinning, wasn't it? Empty, but with all the buildings knocked down, it was worth more money than when it was standing. Because they built it on it now. That's why it was knocked down. And they had the bloody gall to say we'd done it ourselves. And they said they lost a ship, the Polish line, Dubrovsky and all that we used to do there. And it wasn't. We went over to the Polish embassy and had a meeting with them inside, and they told us, no, we were told to take the ship away.
Yeah.
They were told by these people. So it's the sort of people who are against.
Yeah. So what do you think of all this now, all this housing?
Disgusting.
And not even...
And now since this government's been in, this is still where it has always been, a bloody sewer. You still can't swim in it. So what they've been doing? Everything, when they come in, they said all these jobs are all overmanned. Suddenly they're all undermanned. That's all these accidents are coming from.
Yeah.
Got enough people to do the bloody job. And if you want to see, find out what job a man works at, if he's a docker or not, tell him to roll his trousers up and look at his shins.
Yeah?
All scars. So, well, you don't see a lot of them now, but I had all little scar miles of them.
Yeah?
That was before the war, that one. But you see them where they catch the trucks, or the truck runs into them, things like that. And so it all goes across there. And I had one.
But you get a few on the bicycle too.
No, I'm not too bad on that. But I tell you a thing, like ulcerated legs you get a lot in the docks. See where you get these wounds and then they don't heal up properly. And just get a thin skin over them and then you can rub it off like that. See, mine is the same now. If I rubbed up here a little bit, you see it's thin skin that'll rub off.
Yeah.
Because it's my age, I suppose, now. You can't keep beautiful all the time, can you?
These people got here first, so we're just...
More people have gone there, so we're just
Sorry to muck your day up, but it's very feminine.
You look back, you know, and you look back with regret, really, because it took so much work away from this borough. I mean, they relied on the docks for money to do things, isn't it? But now they've all gone, they haven't got it. I mean, all they've got now is a few residents.
You're not filming.